Yes, war and PTSD, exactly what I expected from a boxing anime. I'm kidding, okay? Don't take that seriously. This episode took a very dark turn. So, a turn that I did not expect. And before I get into the core content of the episode, can we talk about how the beginning of this episode was very misleading? Like, when I turned on this episode, I honestly thought I was watching the wrong series, because I was like, what the hell? Like, this looks a lot like, Steins Gate from yesterday. I was like, I honestly thought I was watching Steins Gate for a second, because it started off in a very similar way, like the episode that came out, for Wednesday. And I was like, okay, did I click on something wrong? I looked at the episode, checked the title. I'm like, oh, I guess this is Megalobox. It continued on. Then we got to see, the opening song. I'm like, okay, so I am watching the right series. But I thought I was watching the wrong show for a moment when I saw the beginning of this episode. This episode is about establishing Aragaki as a character, letting us see his point of view, what he's been through, and allowing us to understand what he fights for. Now, as I talked about in my previous episode review of Megalobox, is that with them cutting out those two little fights that were kind of turned into a montage, it allows for episodes like this. It allows them to fit episodes like this into a one central core episode or multiple episodes for we can learn about certain fighters. This case, Aragaki. And so Aragaki's backstory, even though I personally have never been in that position, like I never went to war, I never had PTSD like that or anything, even though I can't truly comprehend everything he has went through, I feel bad for him. I have sympathy for him. I hope that, he has a good life once everything is said and done. I mean, just the whole start of the episode when we find out that this man was in the military, he was fighting, and then as he thought he was about to die and he's seeking shelter, he sees this woman on the ground that appears to be dead holding a child. He flips her over and we know the rest. And it's a very grim start to the episode, seeing what this man had to go through. And we get the reason to why his face looks so messed up, why he has this scar, burn mark all over his face. It's because of him being in the military. But then, as the episode continues, we truly get to see how bad the explosion was. He lost his legs completely. And then it makes you start wondering, how is this man even fighting properly in Megalobox? Because without your legs, that is going to be a huge hurdle to overcome. It's going to be something that is almost nigh impossible. Many would look at you if you lost your legs and say, you need to give up. That's what majority of people would say. And most likely that is what happened to Aragaki throughout his life after he came back. Many probably are saying, you should give up boxing, do not do it, stop it, carry on with your life, try to be easy, retire, whatever. I could see many telling him this over the course of him coming back, which probably did not help his mental state at all. And from what you can see from this episode, the only thing that's actually kept him going this long, to push this far and to continue to live, is the fact that he wanted to box. He wanted to be a megalo boxer. And also Nambu plays a very big part in this as well. So to get right into that, Aragaki, he is a very resentful and vengeful man. He is someone that is taking his aggression out, not on the world, but on certain individuals around him. Mainly, he's focusing his anger on Nanbu and now Joe. And a lot of the reasons for it, it makes sense. It's very realistic. It's human. Even if it seems stupid, like from us, the outsider's perspective, it seems stupid, it's very petty. But that's the thing. We as human beings, we are petty individuals. We do stuff that is just stupid, but we do it because we are resentful and horrible people. Or everybody has that little streak inside of them where they're petty or horrible, and in this case, he's taking his aggression out on what has happened to him on certain people. And he's really mad with Nambu because the fact that he was abandoned. He felt like he was just straight up abandoned, and Nambu just, kicked him to the side of the road and left him be and forgot about him. And in a way, that kind of did happen. But there is some of the logic that once again goes back to just being very petty and very stupid. For instance, it's stated that Nambu should have tried harder to look for, Aragaki, try to find him, even though it said on the news that he died, and we saw that Nambu was very upset about this. He cried, and he resorted to drinking and all that, he just broke his TV. Well, we could see that the man was emotionally disturbed by that. He was really upset, which probably began his downward spiral to where he's at right now with his life, and how he's having to, work with Joe to be able to save himself, or he doesn't get, executed by the Mafia. So, I mean, when you think about all of these things, it's probably Aragaki that initiated all this. And it's not his fault, but I mean, that's probably what began the downward spiral for Nambu. And apparently it's stated that Nambu should have tried to find out if Aragaki was alive. But, like I said, the report, it said he was dead. And so I'm just like, that's kind of petty. I mean, it was stated that he was dead, so you shouldn't really hold that against the man. But then we find out that it makes sense that this man's been a part of Megalo boxing for a bit now, and he's, in the top 20. He's the 17th ranked fighter. He's one of the best fighters. And so, obviously, if Nambu is a coach, he should know. He should have been aware of maybe the top fighters, since he is someone that, is a professional. And so, I can understand that point of view of why, Aragaki would be upset. Even if you knew I wasn't alive or whatever, you thought I was dead, if you were looking at the fighters and stuff, since you're still a coach, you should know that I was alive. You should be able to see my name. So when you look at all these things, I understand why he's mad, but a lot of it is petty. But once again, it goes back to realistic characterization, because that is what people would do. They would be very petty over something like that. But getting back into his characterization, though, he wants to destroy Joe. That is what Aragaki wants. He wants to destroy him. And not in a means of, killing him. He wants to destroy Joe. Everything he stands for, what he wants right now, he wants to destroy that. Because he wants to do what was done to him to someone else. For instance, destroy their way of life or what they believe in. In this case, Joe, what he wants a good fight. He wants to be able to move up the rankings. That's what he's been about since the very beginning. And so if he was to lose, to get demolished, not have a chance to get in the, the Megalo box, Megalodonia and all that, he would, lose his dream. And in a case, his entire hopes and dreams he wants to be would be crushed right then and there. And that's kind of what he is doing, but also taking the aggression out on Nambu to say, look, you try to move on without me, I don't like this, I'm jealous, and now, I'm going to destroy the very fighter you've been trying to build up. So, I understand, it's realistic why he's acting like he is, and Joe has a very hard fight ahead of him. Speaking of the fight, that cliffhanger was pretty savage. What was with that cliffhanger? It ended at the count of 9, and if I know my numbers right, if I'm not brain dead, 10 is the count. If you go over 10 or get to 10 or over, it's GG. You're done. Get out of here. So, yeah. Joe might lose this fight. I mean, when you think about it, everything is stacked against him right now. I mean, Aragaki, he has main character potential. When you look at his character design and his characterization, he definitely could potentially be the MC. Or at least an MC of a story, because of his background and all that. You have this war veteran trying to overcome his PTSD and move on with his life and, be, fixed and brought back into normal society. Something like that could be done with any type of story, and so he could easily be an MC. But in this case, though, he's not. Which, that makes it to where Joe has a lot to overcome, because this man, he has experience. He's a war veteran. He also is someone that learned everything from Nambu, and I mean, he's managed to work himself back up to the point to where he's at right now, even though he has lost his legs. But at the same time, he does have his handicaps. I mean, the man does not have legs. I mean, it's impressive he's being able to fight like he is, but at the end of the day, that still is a handicap. The man does not have legs. He's not going to be able to perform like a normal person. And so because of that, that's probably going to lead to his downfall, is because of the injuries he had throughout his life. But getting back into the 9-second count, though, I want to point out that the screen was black. We didn't really get to see Joe at all when the countdown was happening, and besides just the beginning part of the countdown. So for all we know, he could be getting back up at 9 and all that, and he's almost in position. So I don't necessarily say he's probably down yet, but there is a likely possibility he could lose this, and maybe Nambu would have to scramble together to get another fight going. I could definitely see something like that happening. But, Anyways, getting back into Nambu and all that, and his connection with, Aragaki. Nambu, he blames himself quite a bit. You could see that the man, he holds this weight on his shoulders. And he even stated that he did kind of just forget about Aragaki, which, in a lot of ways, it also is very realistic, because, you see, us as human beings, we have our own ways of coping with loss, or anything that happen in our life. And in this case, Nambu, most likely, the way he was able to move on was just to run away from it. He ran away from his gym, he ran away to the underground, and when he forgot about everything, that was his own way of coping. He ran away from the problem. And was it the right thing? Probably not, but at the same time, everybody has their own ways of coping with things that come into their life. And so Nambu realized that, yes, he did forget about Aragaki's existence. He forgot all about him, and then he was reminded when he got to meet him once again and found out he was alive. It's a huge wake-up call. And so it's kind of like his past, finally caught up with him. That's kind of how you can view that scene with Nambu. It's like his past just came knocking at the door and it's like, hey, I'm back and all that, and now he has to realize all the errors he made throughout his life. So I feel bad for Nambu, but we also get a little bit more insight to him. He even states to Joe in this episode that he does not care about Joe. But that is a fat lie. Because Nambu, he is a liar. Oh, he is a big liar, and Joe's very aware of this as well. And we saw what he did towards the Mafia boss. Now, we know he saved himself, but he could have easily have thrown Joe under the bus, but he didn't. And so because of that, we know that he does care about Joe somewhat. I mean, he even went out of his way to talk to Aragaki about Joe. He's like, hey, your anger was with me. Don't take it out on Joe. A man wouldn't go out of their way and say something like that if they didn't care about the individual. So, Nambu, he's just lying. And maybe Joe isn't really aware of that. Maybe he truly does think that Nambu doesn't care about him, his well-being at all. Maybe Joe does think that. But at the end of the day, I think Nambu really does care about the man. He definitely looks out for him in his own way, and if Joe was to, say, die in the series, which could still potentially happen at the end of this, story, I feel like Nambu would be very upset. He'd probably cry, and, he'd probably go down another downward spiral like he did with Aragaki when he, apparently might have been dead. So, I mean, yeah. It's a pretty good episode. I like the content that this week's Megalo box had. Definitely one of the better episodes, or probably the best episode yet. I just really like the cold and slow style. It was very different compared to the previous episodes. And so, yeah, I mean, just a lot of good moments, a lot of scary and dark moments, and I would definitely like more stuff like this style for the future episodes. I'm just happy that they skipped those two fights that were turned into a montage, because, I mean, it allowed it to where we could get an episode like this. But tell me your thoughts. Do you think Joe is going to win? Do you think he has the potential possibility of overcoming Aragaki? Or do you think he's going to go down and not get back up? Be honest in the comments below. And I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.